And if I told you that the chaos you experience in your daily life, the mental turbulence caused by constantly changing circumstances, the anxiety that arises when the world shifts beneath your feet, and the inability to maintain inner equilibrium despite your best efforts all stem from a single fundamental error. You have placed your peace outside yourself in circumstances that are inherently unstable, when true peace can only be found in the unchanging divine consciousness within you that remains eternally calm regardless of what storms rage in the external world. What if I reveal to you that I have lived through 2 world wars, economic depressions, personal losses, organizational crises, health challenges, cultural upheavals, and every variety of external chaos that typically destroys human peace? Yet I have maintained unshakable inner tranquility through a specific spiritual technique that anchors consciousness in the eternal stillness of God. A technique so powerful that it can transform you from a leaf blown by every wind of circumstance into an immovable mountain rooted in divine serenity. This is not escapism or denial or spiritual bypassing. This is the supreme art of balanced living that I have taught for decades, the practice of remaining actively engaged in the changing world, while simultaneously maintaining an inner sanctuary of peace that no external condition can disturb. And this dual capacity to work dynamically in the world while resting perpetually in God is the highest achievement of human consciousness. I am Paramahansa Yogananda, and I came to the West specifically to demonstrate that spiritual realization is not incompatible with modern life, but is the only foundation that makes modern life sustainable, meaningful, and joyful despite its inherent instability. Today I give you the exact technique to achieve mental balance in a changing world and maintain inner peace regardless of circumstances, starting within the next 24 hours. Before we proceed, activate the frequency of unshakable peace by writing in the comments, "I am anchored in divine peace that no circumstance can disturb." This is not a wish for better circumstances. It is a command that establishes your identity as consciousness itself, rather than as a victim of conditions. And by declaring it, you begin the shift from outer dependence to inner stability. Now pay absolute attention, because what I am about to reveal will overturn the fundamental assumption that keeps humanity trapped in perpetual mental turbulence. The catastrophic reason that billions of people live in chronic mental instability, experiencing peace only when circumstances align favorably and immediately losing that peace the moment something goes wrong, oscillating endlessly between temporary highs when things work out and devastating lows when challenges arise, is because they have made the fatal error of conditioning their inner state on outer conditions, believing that peace comes from having the right job, the right relationship, the right health, the right financial situation, the right living conditions, and therefore spending their entire lives trying frantically to control and manipulate circumstances to maintain this fragile conditional peace that collapses the instant circumstances change, as they inevitably do in this world of constant flux. Listen carefully to this truth that will liberate you. Circumstances are inherently unstable. That is the fundamental nature of the material world, which operates according to the law of change, the law of cycles, the law of polarity, where everything moves between opposites. Success alternates with failure, health alternates with illness, gain alternates with loss, pleasure alternates with pain, and if you anchor your peace in this realm of perpetual change, you guarantee perpetual mental turbulence. But you are not a material being subject to material laws. You are consciousness. You are the eternal witness that observes all changes while remaining unchanged. And when you learn to identify with this unchanging consciousness rather than with the ever-changing circumstances of your life, you discover a peace so profound, so unshakable, so independent of external conditions that it remains perfectly intact, whether you are experiencing success or failure, health or illness, abundance or poverty, praise or criticism. This is not theoretical philosophy. This is practical spiritual science that I have lived and taught. And the students who master this technique report something that shocks their rational minds. Their external circumstances often improve dramatically once they stop making their peace dependent on circumstances, because inner peace creates a high vibration frequency that attracts positive outcomes through the law of attraction, while inner turbulence creates low vibration frequency that attracts more problems, creating a vicious cycle where the person who most desperately needs circumstances to improve is vibrationally ensuring that circumstances continue to deteriorate. When I came to America in 1920, I arrived in a culture experiencing tremendous upheaval, the aftermath of World War I, rapid industrialization, social transformation, economic instability, and I encountered thousands of people who were outwardly successful by material standards, yet inwardly devastated by anxiety, constantly worried about losing what they had gained, constantly striving for more, believing that more would finally bring the peace they sought, and completely unable to enjoy the present moment because their minds were perpetually projected into imagined futures where things might go wrong. I recognized immediately that this was not simply a psychological problem requiring psychological solutions. This was a spiritual crisis requiring spiritual transformation. And I began teaching what I had learned from my guru Sri Yukteswar and from my years of deep meditation, the art of balanced living, the practice of engaging fully with worldly responsibilities while maintaining continuous connection to the inner divine source of peace. Sri Yukteswar taught me the most important principle of mental balance that I have ever encountered, and I have shared this principle with every serious student. The waves of circumstance rise and fall on the ocean of your life, but if you identify with the waves, you experience constant agitation, tossed up and down by forces beyond your control. But if you identify with the ocean depths beneath the waves, you discover that no surface disturbance can affect the profound stillness that exists eternally in the depth. You are not the waves of circumstance, you are the ocean of consciousness. This teaching transformed my entire approach to living in the world. I stopped trying to prevent waves from arising, stopped resisting the natural ebb and flow of circumstances, and instead I cultivated such deep identification with the unchanging consciousness within that the waves became irrelevant to my fundamental peace. And I discovered something miraculous. When I stopped being disturbed by changing circumstances, I became far more effective at navigating those circumstances. Because my decisions came from clarity rather than anxiety, my actions came from wisdom rather than fear, and my responses came from intuition rather than panic. Now let me explain with absolute precision the mechanism through which external circumstances disturb inner peace and how conscious practice of divine anchoring creates immunity to this disturbance. Your mind has two primary modes of operation: reaction mode, where it responds automatically to external stimuli, and creation mode, where it generates its own state independent of stimuli. Most people live entirely in reaction mode, meaning their emotional and mental state is determined completely by what is happening around them. Good news makes them happy. Bad news makes them depressed. Success makes them confident. Failure makes them insecure. Praise makes them elated. Criticism makes them devastated. And they experience themselves as powerless victims of circumstance with no control over their inner state. But reaction mode is not the only option. Creation mode is available to every human being through conscious spiritual practice. And in creation mode, you deliberately generate your inner state through connection to divine consciousness, regardless of what external stimuli are present. When you meditate deeply and touch the eternal peace of your soul, that peace becomes your baseline state. And when you emerge from meditation back into the world of changing circumstances, you carry that peace with you as your foundation. And circumstances may create ripples on the surface, but they cannot destroy the fundamental peace anchored in the depth. The key difference between reaction mode and creation mode is the location of your power source. In reaction mode, your power source is external, outside yourself, in circumstances, and therefore when circumstances shift negatively, your power disappears and you collapse into anxiety or despair. In creation mode, your power source is internal, inside yourself, in your connection to God, and therefore when circumstances shift, you remain stable because your power source has not moved. This is why I teach that daily deep meditation is not optional for anyone who wishes to maintain mental balance in a changing world. Because meditation is the practice that builds your internal power source, strengthens your connection to divine consciousness, and trains you to operate in creation mode rather than reaction mode. Now, I give you the exact technique that I have practiced daily for decades and taught to every serious student, the technique that creates unshakable inner peace regardless of external circumstances. This practice has three components that must be applied together: the morning divine anchoring meditation that establishes your foundation, the technique of even-mindedness that you practice throughout your day when circumstances trigger emotional reactions, and the nighttime surrender command that releases all disturbances before sleep. Let me teach you each component with absolute precision. The first component is the morning divine anchoring meditation, and you will perform this practice immediately upon waking, before engaging with any external stimulus, before checking any device, before reading news, before thinking about your problems or responsibilities, because the state you establish in the first moments of waking sets the vibrational frequency for your entire day. Sit upright with your spine straight, close your eyes, and begin by taking 20 slow deep breaths, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, making each breath slower and deeper than the last, allowing your entire body to relax while your mind becomes alert and focused. After 20 breaths, bring your attention to the point between your eyebrows, the spiritual eye, the seat of concentration and divine perception. Focus all your attention at this point as if you were looking through this point into infinite space beyond your physical vision. As you hold your attention here with unwavering focus, silently repeat this mantra with each breath: I am anchored in peace that passes all understanding. Circumstances change, but my divine nature remains eternally calm. I am not my body that experiences conditions. I am not my mind that reacts to situations. I am the eternal soul, the unchanging witness, the consciousness that observes all change while remaining unchanged. I rest in God's infinite ocean of peace, and no wave of circumstance can disturb this eternal depth. As you repeat this mantra, you must simultaneously feel what you are declaring, not as wishful thinking, but as direct recognition of truth. Feel yourself as consciousness, observing your body, your mind, your circumstances from a place of detached serenity. Feel yourself anchored in something so vast, so deep, so eternal, that all your problems and challenges appear as tiny ripples on an infinite ocean. Feel the peace that exists in the core of your being, regardless of what is happening in your life. Hold this meditative state for a minimum of 20 minutes, and longer if possible, because the depth of peace you touch in morning meditation determines your capacity to maintain that peace throughout the day ahead. When you emerge from this meditation, do not immediately jump into frantic activity. Move slowly and consciously, maintaining awareness of the peace you have touched, carrying it with you as your inner sanctuary. The second component is the technique of even-mindedness that you practice throughout your day, whenever circumstances trigger emotional reactions that threaten to disturb your inner peace. Even-mindedness is one of the supreme teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, the sacred text I have studied and taught extensively, and it means maintaining equal consciousness in success and failure, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and criticism, recognizing all these as temporary fluctuations in the external world that need not affect your internal state. Here is how you practice it in real time. The moment you notice circumstances shifting in a way that triggers anxiety, anger, disappointment, or fear, immediately stop whatever you are doing and perform this practice. Take 3 conscious breaths, and with each breath silently say, "This too shall pass. This is a wave on the surface. I am the depths. I remain unmoved." Then consciously shift your identification from the content of the circumstance to your identity as the witness of the circumstance. Do not deny what is happening. Do not pretend the challenge is not real, but observe it from the perspective of eternal consciousness rather than from the perspective of temporary personality. Ask yourself, will this matter in 100 years? Will this affect my eternal soul? Is this worth sacrificing my inner peace? The answer is almost always no. And this recognition immediately creates distance between you and the circumstance, allowing you to respond with wisdom rather than react with emotion. Additionally, practice what I call the divine reframe, which means consciously choosing to interpret every circumstance as an opportunity for spiritual growth rather than as a threat to your well-being. When you lose money, reframe it as an opportunity to practice non-attachment. When you experience health challenges, reframe it as an opportunity to deepen your meditation and remember you are not the body. When relationships become difficult, reframe it as an opportunity to practice unconditional love. When plans fail, reframe it as an opportunity to surrender control and trust divine timing. This conscious reframing does not change the external circumstance, but it completely transforms your internal experience of that circumstance, and this transformation is what matters for your peace. The third component is the nighttime surrender command that you practice in the state of quietude 60 seconds before sleep. And this technique releases all the day's disturbances and prevents them from seeding your subconscious with anxiety patterns. Tonight, as you lie in bed ready for sleep, take 10 slow deep breaths to relax your body completely. Then place both hands over your heart and speak this command silently with absolute conviction. I release all disturbance from today's circumstances. I surrender all problems to divine intelligence that knows exactly how to resolve them. I let go of all need to control outcomes. I trust the cosmic process that is unfolding perfectly even when I cannot see the pattern. Tomorrow's circumstances are not my concern tonight. Future challenges are not my burden now. I rest in this present moment, where nothing is actually wrong, where I am safe, where I am held in divine consciousness, where peace is my natural state. I command my subconscious mind to process today's experiences without creating anxiety about tomorrow. I am consciousness, eternal and unchanging, temporarily experiencing conditions that shift constantly but never define me. I sleep in peace. I wake in peace. I live in peace regardless of what circumstances arise. As you speak these words, feel yourself releasing an enormous weight, letting go of all the mental struggles and emotional reactions accumulated during the day. Feel yourself sinking into the arms of divine love that holds you regardless of whether your day was successful or challenging. Feel the relief of remembering that you do not have to solve everything tonight, that many things are beyond your control, and that is perfectly fine, that your only real responsibility is to maintain your connection to the peace within. Hold this state of surrender and release as you drift into sleep. Now, let me tell you exactly what will happen in the next 24 hours after you begin this practice. This morning, when you perform the divine anchoring meditation, you will touch a level of peace deeper than you have experienced in months or perhaps years. And this peace will feel like coming home to yourself after a long exile in the chaos of circumstances. You will emerge from meditation feeling centered, grounded, and fundamentally okay, regardless of what challenges await you today. As you move through your day, the critical test will come when something goes wrong, when circumstances shift negatively, when you receive bad news or face unexpected challenges. This is when most people immediately lose their peace and collapse into anxiety. But because you have anchored yourself in divine consciousness this morning, you will notice something different, a space between the circumstance and your reaction, a moment where you can choose even-mindedness instead of automatic emotional turbulence. Use the 3-breath technique in this moment. Observe yourself observing the circumstance, recognize it as a wave on the surface while you remain in the depths, and you will discover that you can maintain substantial peace even while handling difficult situations, that your peace and your effectiveness are not contradictory but complementary. By evening, review your day and notice that you navigated challenges with more grace than usual, that you did not spiral into catastrophic thinking as easily as before, that you maintained more emotional stability despite circumstances that would normally have disturbed you greatly. This evidence proves the technique works and motivates continued practice. But I must give you critical understanding so you use this teaching wisely. Mental balance and inner peace do not mean becoming passive, indifferent, or emotionally numb. Some people misunderstand spiritual equanimity as meaning you should not care about anything, should not feel emotions, should not take action to improve circumstances. This is completely wrong. True even-mindedness means maintaining inner stability while remaining fully engaged with life, feeling emotions without being controlled by them, caring deeply about outcomes while not making your peace dependent on those outcomes, and taking intelligent action to improve circumstances while accepting with serenity whatever results from your efforts. You can grieve losses while remaining anchored in eternal consciousness. You can celebrate victories while knowing they are temporary. You can work passionately toward goals while remaining detached from results. This is the art of balanced living that I have taught. Being in the world but not of the world, engaged but not enslaved, active but not anxious. Additionally, understand that some degree of outer balance supports inner balance. While your fundamental peace must come from within, it is also true that organizing your life intelligently, maintaining regular meditation practice, getting adequate rest, eating properly, managing your time wisely, and avoiding unnecessary chaos in your external circumstances all support your inner work. Do not use spiritual teachings as an excuse to create external chaos and then struggle to maintain inner peace despite the chaos you created. Use wisdom in both dimensions. I have spent my entire life demonstrating that it is possible to accomplish tremendous work in the changing world while maintaining unshakable inner peace. That these two capacities are not contradictory but synergistic. That the person anchored in divine consciousness actually becomes more effective in material affairs, because clarity replaces confusion, wisdom replaces anxiety, and intuition replaces guesswork. The students who master the technique I have taught today report profound transformation. Situations that previously would have devastated them now create only temporary ripples. Crises that used to consume weeks of mental turmoil now get resolved calmly within hours, and they discover a fundamental shift in their relationship with life itself, no longer viewing circumstances as enemies that must be controlled, but as teachers that provide endless opportunities for practicing divine consciousness. This is the ultimate freedom, not freedom from circumstances, which is impossible in the material world, but freedom within circumstances, which is available immediately through spiritual practice. Tonight before sleep, perform the surrender command and release today's disturbances. Tomorrow morning, perform the divine anchoring meditation and establish your foundation in eternal peace. Throughout tomorrow, practice even-mindedness whenever circumstances trigger reaction. Continue this for 7 consecutive days and you will have experiential proof that your peace need not depend on circumstances. Continue for 30 days and maintaining inner stability despite outer chaos will become your new normal. Continue for a lifetime and you will achieve what I call self-realization, the permanent establishment in divine consciousness that no circumstance can disturb. Subscribe to this channel and activate notifications because these teachings represent the practical application of ancient yoga wisdom to modern challenges. And write in the comments right now, I am anchored in divine peace that no circumstance can disturb. This declaration activates your commitment. The technique has been given. Your peace awaits not in better circumstances, but in deeper consciousness. Stop seeking peace in the changing world. Start claiming the peace that is your eternal nature. Transform yourself from a victim of conditions into a master of consciousness. Begin tonight. The unshakable peace you seek is already within you, waiting to be recognized